We put historic preservation, like Toronto Conservancy. Does it matter?
I don't think it's going to be very long,
Okay.
but all right. Let's see, it's 7:00. We have a public hearing on the general assistance ordinance. It's an ordinance that we're required to have a public hearing on. It was the 2022 version, which was on our town website. So I'd like to open the public hearing on the general assistance ordinance and see if we have any public comments on it. Nope. If no public comments, I will close the public hearing. And we will open public hearing number 2, which is to repeal and replace the appendices A to H of the general assistance ordinance. Are there any public comments on the appendices A to H? Nope. So hearing none, we will close that public hearing. That was a quick public hearing.
But all these people are here to speak about it, right?
I thought so. All right, then I will at 7:01 call the I don't even know what today is. Let's see, October 23rd, select board meeting to order. Does anyone have any amendments to the agenda for tonight? Nope. All right. We'll move on to the minutes for the September 25th, 2023 meeting. I guess, and the September 27th, 2023 meeting. We can combine them if anyone has any comments or suggestions or edits.
I'll move it. Second.
Second, okay. Anybody have anything on that they want to amend, change? No, all right. Then all in favor of approving the minutes for those 2 meetings? Pass 5-0. Do we have any public comments tonight not on items on the agenda? Anybody? Mal, come on up.
Al Carey, North Newcastle. The comments that are being handed around are just some observations about a couple of elements of the code. And the code does not permit the town or the state to be subject to the code, except state law says something different, and that's before you now.
I'm not following.
Basically, the town exempts itself from having to observe the conditions of the code and exempts the state. Now, the town is not permitted to do that by a particular state statute that's cited there.
Okay.
And the state is somewhat bound by local code, but not always. And the exceptions are set forth in the state statute.
All right. Guess we'll have to, we'll pass this along to Michael and investigate. Because if we need to make changes, we need to make changes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Mal. Does anyone else have any public comments not on the agenda? All right. New business 5A. Midcoast Conservancy. Patricia. Bring a little handout. You're gonna give us a little update on the
She
Damascotta
does.
Lake.
It's a presentation.
all that.
It's not displaying on this TV screen. Yeah.
Does it need to be on different input?
Oh, input.
Yeah.
There it is.
There we go.
Okay. Do you want me to put these slides?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry if this is an awkward angle for people, but we'll make it work. So I'm Patricia Neese. I'm the Damascotta Lake Watershed Manager with Midcoast Conservancy.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
So just want to start off with Midcoast Conservancy's mission, which is to protect and restore vital lands and waters on a scale that matters. That kind of focuses everything we do at Midcoast Conservancy. And our service area encompasses the Sheepsgate River watershed, the Damascotta Lake watershed, and the Madomic River watershed. So it's almost 500 square miles. It's a lot of area to kind of protect and restore and work in. I really focus on Damascotta Lake, but also do work in other waters. But we divide our programs into kind of 3 categories. We have our land, conservation, and protection. We just surpassed 15,000 acres conserved, which is a very exciting achievement for us. And then we also protect our 3 watersheds through fish passage, climate resiliency, water quality monitoring, things like that. And then we also serve our community. That's one of our biggest, most important constituents. We have 2,000 members that we engage with. A lot of that is focused around Hidden Valley Nature Center, where we have a lot of events and programs. So a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about. It's fairly brief, but I'm going to talk about the Damascotta Lake watershed, our 319 work, some of our Youth Conservation Corps projects, give some examples of best management practices, and then give a brief water quality update. So the Damascotta Lake watershed, for those of you that can see the screen, is this kind of black and yellow squiggly line around Damascotta Lake. Water is lazy. It likes to flow downhill. So a watershed is just the area of land that drains to a certain point. So all the water that goes over the dam in Damascotta Mills comes from this watershed shape. And Newcastle is really low in the Damascotta Lake watershed. It's kind of funny that I'm here talking to you guys about Damascotta Lake because you really make up the smallest portion of the watershed. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. All of this work really does impact Newcastle though, because water flows downhill. So anything that's kind of coming from upstream has the potential to impact Newcastle as well. So again, flowing downhill from the hills up in Washington and Somerville down to Newcastle. So all of the work that I'm going to talk about is part of our Section 319 of the Clean Water Act grant that we have at Midcoast Conservancy. And so this funding mechanism is for non-point source pollution. It's federal money that gets distributed through the state. Damascotta Lake is on a list that qualifies us to apply. It's not really a list you want to be on, but it helps us kind of mitigate some of these non-point source pollution impacts. And the best way to describe what non-point source pollution is to describe what point source pollution is. So on the screen, I have a factory. You can point to that factory's outflow that's going into that water body. But you can't point to every single raindrop really that's coming from the cloud. You can't point to every septic field that's kind of going through groundwater. So non-point source pollution, you can't directly point to. And so this funding source helps us address that. And the funding source funds two main project types. We have our larger scale projects that often require contractor work. They're usually large infrastructure projects like road construction, installing diverters and things like that on roads. And then we have our Youth Conservation Corps program. This is only using hand tools and it can be completed by our seasonal staff. But both types of project, Midcoast Conservancy provides technical support and works with the landowners to develop projects that benefit both parties. They benefit the water and they benefit the landowner. And they have that mutually beneficial goal of preventing erosion on a property. So again, our Youth Conservation Corps projects are smaller hand tool projects. We have had a team of 3 youth in the past 2 years with 1 crew lead, and they install best management practices around the Damascotta Lake watershed. That's where it is now. Our hope is to one day grow it so that we can work within our entire service area with the Youth Conservation Corps, because it's such a good service for the community. Labor is free. And so the landowner just provides materials and the youth come and plant your plants and dig your box culverts and things like that. So this is where all of our YCC projects were around Damascotta Lake, the small triangles. And then this is the 3 projects that we did in Newcastle in the past 2 years. So what is a best management practice? A best management practice helps protect or enhance water quality generally. They're used in construction projects all the time. So this image on the right is of a construction site. You have to submit your erosion control plan to DEP when you do a big construction project and list all of your best management practices that you're going to use. It also can help mitigate the impacts of development. So just kind of helping return things to a more natural state while still having that development. So when we go to a property, this is just an example property. The orange lines are contour lines. Thinking again about water being lazy and how it travels on your property, it tends to kind of concentrate into streams oftentimes. So we try to go uphill of the water flow, spread it out and slow it down through our best management practices. So many arrows. So we've implemented a lot of different best management practices. These are some examples. If you took one of those cards, they have these best management practices on them. And I'll just give a couple examples. So this is one property that water was really concentrating into a gully and you were having some sediment scouring and it was just getting worse and deeper and more sediment was kind of washing into the lake. And so you can see water in this gully. It was coming from the road. They had done some work on the road to repair the road and make sure that water was getting off the road appropriately. But inevitably, water has to go somewhere. And so it was causing a little bit of a problem on this property. And so we ultimately installed a series of rain gardens on the property. So these 3 kind of shallow bowl-shaped depressions filled with sand and gravel and mulch, and we planted plants in them to help soak up that rain in the spot and keep it from kind of continuing to wash downhill. So it ended up looking really nice. Another example here, it's kind of hard to see, but somebody had installed a French drain as part of their construction project, and a French drain is a best management practice. But the French drain outflow had nowhere to go. And it was just kind of, the water was going into this gully that was natural, but it was carrying sediment with it as it went down into the lake. So we installed a dry well on the outflow of the French drain so that water could kind of soak in. And again, A dry well is just kind of a pit in the ground filled with gravel that allows water to kind of settle out right there instead of washing over the land. And then one of our biggest best management practices that we install is buffer plantings. So the vegetative buffer is kind of the last line of defense before water gets to a lake or a river or any kind of water body. It's best to have a vegetative buffer between any development and that water body, because you want to mitigate the impacts of rain to the waterways. So different layers in a natural vegetative buffer absorb the energy of falling rain, kind of break up raindrops as it falls. Roots in the vegetative buffer hold soil and sediment in place, and vegetation also helps absorb rainfall. Your tomatoes can't grow without rain or water. We've had a lot of it this year, so your tomatoes are probably not doing great, but and then the duff or uneven ground layer kind of helps slow water down and allow it to soak in. So the raindrops are playing plinko as they go downhill. Sorry, I'm
Speaking.
Yeah, exactly. So our season totals for YCC, we had 21 sites over the 2 years. We installed a lot of plants, which digging holes in main soil is not easy. And that totaled a lot of PMPs as well. So very, very brief water quality update for those of you curious. It's been a really wet year. This is from the Northeast Climate Center. We've had over 125% of normal precipitation in the last 6 months. That's crazy. But that's going to become more and more common with climate change, which means erosion control practices and best management practices are more and more important. We had fewer cyanobacteria reports on Damariscotta Lake this year and in Maine as a whole, which is interesting with the weather. We're still kind of trying to figure some of that out. But on Damariscotta Lake, we're continuing kind of an intensive monitoring program to better understand what leads to the cyanobacteria outbreaks. And one part of our kind of intensive monitoring is getting these very cool temperature depth profiles. I'm not going to describe this a ton, but red is warmer, blue is cooler. And so we're going through time on the x-axis. And you can see as you move throughout the spring and summer, the water gets warmer at the top and it forms kind of a warm layer where your toes can't feel cold anymore as you're swimming in the water. But I think this kind of stuff is really cool and it helps us understand how the lake is faring, what's contributing to cyanobacteria, things like that. And then we also started a Fecobacteria monitoring program in the lake this year. Not very sexy, but very important. And kind of hot off the press is that we are getting our data on Swim Guide, which is a online platform that anybody can go to and see our Fecobacteria results. So the Damariscotta Mills Beach says Noblesboro, but it's basically Newcastle too. You can go to Swim Guide, look up Damariscotta Mills Beach, and you'll have our Fecobacteria results kind of on hand throughout the summer, which is really cool. So you guys are the first to know about this. And then I also want to put in a plug for our Facebook and Instagram page, which is really where the most up-to-date information is. So if you're curious about what I do when I'm not at select board meetings, Damariscotta Lake Watch is the place to be. And then if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I don't know if there's time for questions, but
There's a couple.
yeah, if anybody has questions. We do not. We're really just looking at E. coli right now because it's in freshwater. That's the most issue. But we are working with partners at Bigelow to do some microbial source tracking of the Fecobacteria to see if it's more human contributed or dog or waterfowl, or count your animal that produces Fecobacteria. Yeah. Yes. I just learned about that. Yeah. Yes, I just learned about that and I'm really, really curious about it because while we have a lot of eyeballs on the lake, any given moment, it's really nice to have kind of that visual image of how things are faring where people are not right looking at it. So it's a big lake. Yeah. And there's a lot of lakes in the area that we don't know about. And so I think that technology could be really useful for this purpose. So,
Are you using GIS at all to map impervious surfaces?
to map, pardon.
Impervious surface.
We are not. We have been using GIS and the National Land Cover data set to kind of look at how development trends that they are tracking are changing over the years. They don't do it every year, but it does appear that development is definitely increasing. Which shocker. But I think it would be cool to do a little bit more impervious surface modeling and things like that. Any questions from?
I just want to shout out to your Instagram page. That's always great information quickly.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Thank you.
Trisha, I didn't get the website for the eco guide.
Yeah, so it's swim guide, I think .org maybe. There's also an app on your phone and you can all the Maine healthy beaches are on swim guide. So Maine isn't as well represented on swim guide as some other places, but it's a really handy way if you're kind of out somewhere, want to find a place to swim, you can check that. And it has, oftentimes it will have fecal bacteria information, which again, not very sexy, but important for
Good.
risk
to know.
assessment.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Patricia.
yeah, thank you.
All right, moving on to 5B, Historic Preservation Ordinance, which I guess really is now the Historic Special District Review Ordinance. As background, the select board requested a committee to come up with a draft historic preservation ordinance as a response to townwide input back in 2016, 17, 18, favoring preservation of our historic districts as part of a comprehensive plan. When the core zoning code was adopted in 2020, there wasn't enough time to include a module on historic preservation, which would have replaced the 20-year-old or 20-year plus old design review process. But the intent was to do so right away. Then came the pandemic. So things got delayed. That's why we're doing it now. First, I'd like to thank the committee for volunteering their time to respond to our request. We appreciate the effort and all the hours they put in to coming up with this document. Hopefully everybody here has had a chance to review comments from last month's public hearing. It was online and so had good opportunity. Tonight, in the interest of time, considering our packed agenda, we're focusing on next steps in this process rather than the details of the proposed ordinance.
I do a point of order. Excuse me, the chair is speaking.
But
So,
let me just,
just-
let me,
I don't think you can, I mean, that's for a point of order, you could rule on it.
I don't know how that works. Do you?
You can rule on his point of order. Do you want to hear him or not?
Let me finish what I'm saying and then. So we're just focusing on what our next step is going to be. So there will absolutely be another public hearing process on the details of the ordinance. But tonight we just wanted to figure out what the next step in the process is going to be going forward for the select board and for the ordinance. So now, June, did you want to say something real quick?
So
I don't believe you can go to the next step because it shouldn't be here tonight. The planning board's vote to be here, to send it to the select board is flawed. So at the end of the public hearing, you can watch the tape. I explicitly asked the chair if the board was going to deliberate on the matter and make a recommendation, and the chair clearly said no.
Yeah,
You
but that's
asked the
not a point
board,
of order.
It's, I'm
but you
trying to
asked,
get to it.
okay, but you asked
So-
the planning board chair. Is that who you're
Right.
referring? Okay.
Right. So, there was just among, as this many people, if not more, at the
Yep.
hearing.
Yep.
They all cleared out, and then the board went on to hear a pre-application review. After that, the board was asked to, amend its agenda, which was improper, to go ahead and deliberate on whether or not to send it to the select board. So that was an error. And then, despite the fact that it closed public hearing, it took additional comment, and then started to deliberate. And then without having opposing viewpoints presented at that time, the board erroneously voted that it was consistent with the code and the the code and the comp plan, and then voted to send it to the board. So because of those procedural errors, there's 3 of them. I don't believe it's here in front of you tonight in a proper form, and it shouldn't be addressed. It should be sent back to the planning board for further comment, because it took additional comment without and purely on one side of the issue, and it is not proper to be heard tonight.
So what you're saying is that the board made changes after the public hearing to the document, or no?
No, they
So,
took additional comment.
but there were no changes to the actual document.
That's correct.
Okay.
But they weren't there to make changes to it. They were there to decide whether or not to recommend to the planning board to go forward.
I'd have to watch it. I don't recall additional comments on them.
You may recall that Tor got up and spoke. and then-
I'm just saying,
so-
I don't remember. That's
Okay,
all.
Yeah,
Don't
so,
don't
it-
attack
which is
people.
great, because we have the tape to go back.
It was
Yeah.
when Isabel
Made comment.
made.
At an introduction by a town resident.
Thanks.
So
Okay.
I hope you could rule on that or accept it into the record.
Okay. So we're going to talk about investigating this further anyhow. So I don't know if David's correct or not correct. I mean, we'd have to look at the rules, and I don't know all those off the top of my head, so.
I think his accounting of the situation is correct. I think the legality of it is the question. I
Right.
don't believe it's legal. Yeah. From my understanding of. Yeah, doesn't. There's nothing there, but we can look into it.
Yeah.
I think the
That's fine.
key right now is in next steps in, I mean, originally the concept was that we're gonna get this, we're trying to get this ordinance together to get it out for a vote. We had talked about November, we had talked about a special town meeting. I think that probably we're not gonna be fitting into that time frame.
No.
So we're gonna be past that time of, we're gonna be past the time limit before a vote, so it's gonna have to go back to the planning board anyway, so I don't think there's really anything to worry about with what David's talking about or concerned with. And I think that what we really need to focus on is how the select board's gonna take a look at this document and help direct the committee
Wait for
to,
the next step.
to, to work on it and for us to dig into it.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
yes, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, and I believe that what from watching the public hearing that David was talking about, my understanding of the discussion that was had was whether this fit the directive. It wasn't whether the planning board liked it or didn't like it. It's whether it fit the comprehensive plan of the town and the direction that we're all given, that was given to us by the legislative body of this town. And so that's what the select board does up here, is we take all that information. It's kind of like being on jury duty up here, where we can't just say, oh, I don't like this, or I like this, and make our decisions based on what we like and what we don't like. We have to look at all sides, look at all the information before us, look at what the documents that, again, the legislative body of the town, which is the voters who voted to give us our directive and how we're supposed to look at these things. So I think the planning board did a great job in following that protocol. And I think that there's obviously things that need to be looked at. I think that there's plenty of room for discussion further. And I don't think it's a situation. Yeah, it's we have citizens, trying to do some good work here. So I think that the next step probably would be to set up a workshop for the select board to dig in and review this thing and kind of figure it out. That's what I would propose.
After the holidays.
Exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
This is not ready for meeting on the 11th.
No, definitely
So, you know. Yeah, so I agree with Joel. I think our next step, because Karen and I are intimate with the whole process. Tom, Rufus and you
Mhm.
haven't been. So I think we need to take the time to, whatever time that is, one workshop, 2 workshops, whatever it is, so that you guys are comfortable with what's going on. I'd also like to recommend that in the workshops, we invite town planner, legal counsel, and the chair of the planning board to meet with us.
that would be great.
Yeah.
So we can set something up for
I'm thinking January.
January.
Maybe
Yeah.
sometime in June.
Yeah, maybe second meeting, something like that.
We're good.
So
Or we
if
can do it on,
if it needs to be kicked back to the planning board, there's plenty of time.
and we can do it on an off night too, if we decide we do it on like a Wednesday or something like that.
Yep.
If we want to devote more time than just an hour. 'Cause generally speaking, if we're gonna have a workshop before a meeting,
An hour.
we only have an hour to do it, and this might be something where we want to just dig in. And we'll put it on the website and obviously mention it at our meetings and put it out there so that everyone can attend, wants to attend and
So
Sit
judging
on a-
by the amount of public input.
Yeah.
Probably more than an hour.
yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking. And that way and again, the way workshops work is it's a good time for the board to discuss everything, sort of understand, sink our teeth into it, understand what it is. And then, once the boards had their sort of chance to get all the information that they need, then, if there's time for public comments on sort of some of the discussion points that we're having. That way we could spend all night hearing from people about what they like or don't like, or what they've heard and what someone said and what email went around and what that said and how they understand it. But again, until the board fully kind of understands exactly what's in this thing and really understands all that, and we have a chance to have that kind of discussion and explanation with, again, legal counsel, town planner, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really amount to anything productive, which is what the purpose of these meetings are.
So, yeah, to be clear, my thought on this workshop is not to talk about the language of the ordinance or get into, making recommendations. I think that's either committee work or planner work.
Mhm.
I think our job is to look at it from the 30,000 foot view and figure out what's the best sort of way, what are the options for the town to address this legal document.
And then perhaps push it.
And then
back
make
to-
a recommendation to go somewhere else.
Okay. All right,
I think that's what
do we need a motion?
I make a motion that we.
No,
No,
Don't need to
did you
make
say
a
no?
no,
No.
okay,
Yeah, the motion.
Yeah.
all right.
All right.
Thank
You
you.
just, I,
The agenda said there will be public comment on the subject this evening. Are you abrogating that?
We
just,
are not. Oh,
Excuse me.
excuse me, no,
This,
come on, let's be respectful. We, exactly, we are not debating the merits of the ordinance tonight. We were just figuring out what the next step is. So we don't,
It's not
We're not-
consistent with the public agenda.
no, it just says that it's on here to discuss. So we just discussed it and David doesn't think we should be having it anyway. Any
Jen-
discussion anyhow, so
Are you the public or are we the public?
I don't know what
The
you're
agenda
asking.
states that there will be public
No.
comment. You are forestalling. that.
Excuse me, could you identify yourself and sit up in the microphone so that other people can hear you?
Brian Lesser, the Kings Highway People's Democratic Republic of Sheepscot Village.
Okay, generally in these meetings, we have a new business item that is discussed and then furthered. So this is new business for us.
Yes. Would you please
And
read
it's-
the line item on the agenda?
New business, historic preservation ordinance. That is
Right. And the next line?
Route 1B, Main Street and Mills Road, pre-engineering services.
No.
Yep.
There were two lines in the agenda regarding this topic.
Nope.
No, there's only one. And there's only always been
are
one.
you referring to the top? Those are public hearings on general assistance ordinance?
No, I'm referring to the one on the Historic Preservation District. It said there would be public discussion. or
Where does
public
it,
comment.
where does it say that, sir?
It doesn't. And the agenda's right there. Scroll back up. Kevin.
Can you zoom that in so you can see it? New business.
Okay,
New
I,
business.
it was something I read on the Town of Newcastle website this afternoon.
No,
Okay.
our intent was not to have a public hearing on it tonight.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Yep,
You've
sure.
answered the question.
Sure. do.
When will we be able to have debate going back and forth? You just kind of jammed it through.
No.
At a public hearing, sir. We haven't had a public hearing.
Last public hearing, it was not a debate.
So that,
We
again,
didn't call the last one anything. This is the first time it's been brought to us. That was the planning.
But they never, it doesn't matter. Right? Meeting, planning.
Okay.
board meeting.
Yeah.
okay, I'm just gonna, excuse me. Yeah, no, exactly. That if you want to speak, you have to be called on, you have to approach the microphone, you have to say your name, say where you live. And it has to be opened up to that. This is how select board meetings have always worked. So. I don't know how many of you have been to a select board meeting before. But this is how they work. We're not trying to crush anything. We're just trying to move through our agenda. And get things done.
And-
We haven't pushed anything forward. We haven't proposed any action other than learning about this and discussing it further. That's it.
Right.
So,
The next public step would be a public hearing. If you were to just say, let's say you wanted to have this as a special town meeting on December 11th. My recommendation would be there would be a public hearing at the next meeting or the following meeting before you put it on a town warrant. The debate would really happen at a town meeting. This would be a great discussion, back and forth discussion about whether or not this should be passed
mhm.
as the collective of the people, rather than just the select board who decides what goes to the people to make decisions on. And right now, this select board has decided to postpone, do a little more detailed work and workshop, and figure out how and when this should go to the public. So there will be a public hearing at some point about this. There are ways to get involved and keep abreast of the select board's meetings. If you want, I do an agenda distribution for every meeting, and all of our information is available and open to the public.
Thanks.
All right, so. Ready to move on to the next
If we may.
item?
Great.
It's about, no, I'm just asking, is it about this process? Is that what you're asking? No, I just want to know if it's about this process. Okay, that's fine. All right, and then we'll move on to new business 5C. Route 1B Main Street and Mills Road pre-engineering services. Let's see. All right, Kevin, this was a multi-part.
Right, and so I know that one of your top 10 priorities has been to address our downtown planning.
Yep.
And part of that is Route 1B coming from, well, Tor and Ben know most about this project, but
Hold on,
Yeah,
yeah.
excuse
it's
me.
Pause until
distracting.
It's, if there are people that don't want to be in part of the rest of the meeting, if you want to take your discussion outside, that's fine. That was my question. Yep, we can take a pause. 5-minute break.
No, I think there's something on the town website. No, and I just wanted you to understand how the meeting is run and the proper way to do it.
that.
That's all.
I was responding to what I saw on the town website.
Fair enough.
I mean, there is one, but it's for the planning board.
What's up?
Yeah, what he
The
saw.
gentleman who was concerned about a public hearing on this, there is one, but it was specifically for the
Oh.
planning board public hearing.
Which I already have,
Guess I could take those notices down.
so it's your fault.
It is my fault. Just blame me. It's easier that way,
Confusing.
guys.
We start over.
Okay. Yeah, I see. So it's the Route 1B Main Street and Mills Road pre-engineering services.
So the reason this is in front of you tonight is because we still have to follow our purchasing bid ordinance as it exists, and you are still the Board of Selectmen under the old ordinance. So the Board of Selectmen have to authorize me to move forward with the bid process. This bid has been drafted in partnership with the state DOT, as they are the owners of Route 1B that cuts through or is our main street. I know that there's been effort by a select board member and a planning board member, Tor and Ben, who have worked really hard to make this aware or on the state DOT's radar screen, and they have decided to partner with us on what's called the Village Partnership Initiative. And as part of that Village Partnership Initiative, they'll cover half the cost of a planning study, and the town will be responsible for the other half. We've drafted the scope of work, and I want to thank Michael Martona, our planner, who's here waving in the corner there, for putting this together. Just need your approval to move forward. The DOT's already sort of approved it, so I hope we don't have to make many or any changes to it. I've also signed on so that we could get this stuff done. So I just wanted to provide you the documentation and get your blessing so that I can get this thing bid. I think our goal is December 11th. It's our meeting on December 11th. We're just going to collect them for that because our ordinance says at the next meeting, the select board will open the bids. Well, okay, so if we have a meeting on December 11th, we might have a special meeting later to actually open it, or I don't know how to address that issue. But
Yeah.
your next meeting might be January before you open it. I'm not too worried about it. I just set it for December 11th that they'd be collected.
But there's a couple things. One, and I'm trying to remember now if it was, we had three things here, a grant agreement, an RFP,
And a scope of work.
and a scope of work. The grant agreement, let me just back up. The grant agreement, we'll have to upfront if it costs $140,000, we'll have to upfront the whole thing. And then we get
Get
reimbursed
reimbursed.
after it. So we're gonna have to figure out where to get those. We'll have to get those funds.
We have the cash. We just have to move money around and
Right.
take care of that.
Okay.
What's the term of repayment. on it. So we,
50%?
no, but,
The
When?
timeline?
how long?
Oh,
Good
How long,
question.
how long do we have to put that?
this, not even I would say a few months.
Okay.
I wouldn't. They're pretty good about paying back.
Yeah.
Especially right now, they're flush with federal infrastructure money, so.
And did I read it correctly that it's not going to be awarded based on cost, it's going to be awarded based on
So yes, it's based on technical.
technical.
So there's
ability.
actually two packets that come to us. One is all of the technical
Right.
and ability piece, and then separate on an envelope is how much it might cost.
Right.
So you make your decision first on your technical ability, and then you open to find out how much it's going to cost.
Mhm.
I think the max on this is 150.
Right.
Yeah.
And we currently have 50 set aside.
Right.
As part of last year's town meeting, you set aside 50,000. So if
Yep.
it comes in above that, we'll have to move some money. And that's within your purview as the select board.
Do we have a,
Vendors? The state does have a short list of vendors that they would recommend, yes. But they're the ones we'll send, we have to publicly now announce the bid, but we can also send, hey, nudges, hey, make sure you apply.
yeah, so
Do you keep breaking the mics?
I don't know what's going on here.
It's all those mic drops.
Yeah, I know that's not the problem.
Never.
Anyway, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town manager to sign. I'm sorry, excuse me for a second. What's the motion?
But to
There it is.
authorize.
Authorize
okay.
the town to solicit proposals for pre-engineering service on the Main Street and Mills Road in Newcastle is drafted.
I'll second.
All right, just before we vote on it, notice. It seemed like it was pages were pulled out. The page numbering was weird. I just want to make sure we're not missing something before that goes out. Like page 47 is 1 of 6. And then 48 is
Yeah.
2 of 8.
Sorry about that. That's taken from the state's template to
Okay,
draft this, and
But nothing's missing, it's all
nothing's
okay.
missing.
Okay.
Their page, their
They're-
template footers were a little wonky. I tried to fix them before I got everything out, but
no problem. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
something wasn't missing out of there. Okay, so all in favor of allowing town manager to solicit proposals for the pre-engineering. Main Street. Passes 5-0. All right, then on to unfinished business, the general assistance ordinance. On the road thing? The engineering?
New business items in your agenda.
We're,
I know, you've asked it. That's why I'm bringing it up. My name is Paul Zonner. I live on 17 Stonebridge. And I'd like you to read the paragraph about new business items. That was A, the Midcoast Conservancy, B, the Historic Preservation Ordinance, and C, what you just discussed, the road. But the new business item reads, and excuse me, but this location on the agenda is meant for items that have not previously been put before the select board. You are the select board, correct? Ideally, they are placed here as an introduction and for in-depth discussion before a final draft is later presented as an unfinished business item at a future meeting. That would imply that an in-depth discussion should have been made on the proposed historic site district. And You did not allow for that in-depth discussion, which many of the residents here came to do.
Right.
So could you explain why you did not do what the manager commentary suggests?
If we were discussing the ordinance itself, we were getting into the details of it, then that would have been the appropriate time to do it. We were discussing the next steps in what the select board is
So,
doing moving forward. And so that's what we were discussing. And so that's why we didn't get into all
Right.
the,
right, I get
Details.
what you said was
so
that
that's,
you don't know enough to put it on the, or to discuss it.
no,
The details, right?
Right.
that's not what we said at all. What we said is we were discussing our next steps
Right.
as a select board in that ordinance. And that's what we discussed and that's what we're doing.
So what is this manager's comment?
It's
and this paragraph.
ideally,
Ideally.
but not
understand.
every time.
But we did discuss that in depth. That's what we
Well-
were discussing.
You two did, with a few comments from the side, but you allowed very little discussion from the people who
Yeah.
came here to discuss it.
That's the format of the select board. You could read the entire bylaws of the select board.
Yeah.
It's their discussion, not necessarily that with everybody.
I get that. And so you take no comments from the gallery?
That's an option of the select board and the select board chair specifically. But I think the bigger issue is there's a lot of other things on the agenda.
Mhm.
And their decision was more about, look, we probably don't have time to go in depth discussion among the select board tonight. Let's hold a workshop in January to further explore this. So that was their decision tonight. Don't move it forward, Mr. Manager. Hold off on trying to move this forward at this point.
So you're kicking it down the road a little bit further, and all these people who came to make discussion, to have an in-depth discussion were just left. And so you're not going to discuss this anymore at this meeting. Is that
The-
correct?
No, sir.
No. And the discussion they wanted to have, we're not ready to have yet.
But that's
So-
what they came to let you know, so you
Well,
could discuss it.
They made their point,
So,
which led us to
You allow
believe that we
the
need to.
so,
Gentleman to make his.
All right.
so
You answered
and-
one or two other
and-
questions.
and-
that's about it.
and you approached without really being asked to come up, but that's all right.
I appreciate,
Um,
I appreciate the
so-
opportunity.
So, when I'm only vice chair now, I'm not chair,
But you got a lot of
Uh,
experience. So go
but I
ahead.
have some experience in it. And, what Mal did, when with public comments not on the agenda, it's my least favorite thing in the world. Okay? Because I'm a volunteer. I work a full-time job. Okay? I'm not retired. I work 60 hours a week. I have lots of things I have to do. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that the volunteers up here do. That, helps keep this town what it is.
And
And
I,
so,
I
excuse me, sir,
appreciate that.
excuse me, sir. but-
okay,
Listen to what I'm saying. So when I get a piece of paper presented to me at a meeting and I haven't had a chance to look at it, I have no background on this information. And Mal gives me this information. He wants me to look at it later, and I will. And that's fine. Mal didn't ask us to really have any discussion on that, and public comments not on the agenda. He gave this to us as information to look at, discuss at a later time. So if the select board is not able to have an in-depth discussion because we don't have all the background information, it's a waste of everyone's time. People can complain, people can say whatever they want to say, but until the select board has had a chance to educate themselves and understand exactly what is being discussed, it's a fruitless effort. It's when people come with anger and frustration and kind of crazy theories as to what the planning board is doing. We heard some accusations from the peanut gallery about what the select board was doing and how they didn't listen to anybody and they were pushing this through and this, that, and the other thing. It's not productive. And those are the kind of things that aren't appropriate in a meeting, in any meeting. And so we did exactly what we were supposed to do, which is we discussed that item, came up with a plan on how to move forward with it, and decided on that course of action. And that's exactly what it was.
yeah.
I can't help that people came,
Expecting
I've-
something else.
I've seen a couple of emails that were exchanged through a group of citizens, and that's great. But because someone says, and someone who's not on the select board, someone who's not directly involved with the town, send something out saying, come to the meeting and voice your comments. That's not something, that's not a directive from the town. That's a directive from a citizen, and I can't help what they say or don't say. But what we can do here is keep a nice orderly meeting, keep the temperature low, and keep things moving along, because it's already pushing 8 o'clock.
I get,
We've
Okay,
got plenty
I
more
appreciate-
agenda items to get
I
through. and we
appreciate
have
your
everything set.
sacrifice to our town, okay?
So-
And I probably wouldn't want to do your job either. On the other hand, I wouldn't call the citizens of the town a peanut gallery.
Yeah.
Okay. They came here to educate you to their opinion of the ad hoc committees.
And it wasn't the appropriate time to do it, and when it is the
Okay,
appropriate.
but
time,
your
would be
agenda, your
allowed.
new business item says you would have an in-depth discussion
Can I just
and
pause?
discussion between two
My
of you.
concern is that we're having discussion
Yeah.
after half the room is
Yeah.
left. And
That's
we're-
what, that's my problem with it.
Well, the
They
problem
all
is,
met.
the problem is we
No.
moved on an agenda into another item, and
Yeah.
now we're coming back
Yeah.
to an agenda item.
Well,
and-
I
and
brought it up because you were at the end of the new business items. And this is a new business item.
But we
You
moved
had
on
not
to a
got-
different item.
But I mean,
So-
we explained it as best we could. Can we move on
Yep.
to the,
Yes, you may move on. I just want you to know my opinion of the way this was handled.
we heard,
And I disagree with it. It's not consistent with your new agenda item.
I disagree
state.
with that as well, but
Thank you very much.
all right, sure, thanks. All right, so now on to the unfinished business of the general assistance ordinance. We had the public hearing. And get onto the right page here. Let's see, we had the required public hearing. So at this point, I guess, I have a motion to adopt the general assistance ordinance as written.
so moved.
Joel, seconded by Rufus. Does anyone have any discussion on it? No, we had fairly good discussion.
I
on
mean,
it
we, was
earlier meeting.
9/11, is that what we talked about this last?
Yep. On September 11th, yep. All right, if no discussions, all in favor of adopting the general assistance ordinance? Passes 5-0. Similarly, for the appendices A to H for this fiscal year coming up 23-24. We've had the public hearing, so do I have a motion to adopt the general assistance ordinance appendices A to H for 23-24?
So moved.
Moved by Joel, seconded by Tom. Does anyone have any questions, discussion points? Nope. All right, all in favor of adopting the general assistance ordinance appendices? Passes 5-0. Okay, this one will not go quickly because we have lots of fun information. Unfinished business C, the VBH report on Lynch Road culvert.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Is that up front?
come on down.
I'm gonna share.
I'm sure we can roll you up another comfy one if you want.
I'm sure this will be fine.
You won't fall asleep in that one.
So many windows open. We'll try to find that one again.
I'll just say, good evening. I'm Carl Ayers. I'm a senior structural engineer with BHB Engineering. Brian Reeves. I'll call it BHB.
And I'm Kevin Sutherland. I'm the town manager, and I put this PowerPoint slide together based on the 98-page report. I figured we could do the too long did not read version and try to break it down into something that I can understand by having a conversation with them and hopefully be able to translate that into something we can all fully understand, except for maybe you, because you have experience in this.
No, and Mel looked at all those charts and graphs and water tables too, I bet. I know he did.
That's right.
I
Oh,
did too.
Rufus did too. Okay.
Oh, yeah. you as well. All right.
We've got
So
some
maybe I have,
participants.
okay, maybe you guys are going to be informing me about all this. All right, so there is a report that the state DOT did about Lynch Road culvert. It's actually called a minor span. There's any bridge or span that is beyond 10 feet, 10 feet has to be inspected by the state DOT. And even if it's owned by us. So this is a piece of infrastructure that is owned by the town of Newcastle. However, the state does a report every, how many years, Brian? 2 years? So the last report was done in 2022. And that report showed a little bit of movement, but nothing like what you see right there. So this piece of the culvert
Oh.
dropped significantly up there. You can also see,
You guys move on down, guys. Come on down where
yeah,
you
come
can
on
see.
around. Come
Move on
around,
down.
please.
Move on down.
Grab your chair, come around. I'll wait.
Drag your chair. Come
It's
on.
good we have Midcoast Conservancy here. This is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Take this.
You can angle it back a little bit. Yeah.
And I'll,
Service, town service.
That doesn't keep you up half the night, Mal?
It does.
How do you think he comes up with all this stuff?
Oh, that's right. You didn't sleep. You drinks coffee.
So that's the traveling southwest. That's the southwest side of this. So the outflow, this is looking out on the west side of the road. This was July when we were, is that when we were out there, Carl?
That's right.
Okay.
So this is looking towards the marsh.
Yeah, away from Newcastle,
Yep. Okay.
towards the
Down the
marsh
street.
side. Yep.
Okay.
And you can see all the riprap that's there too. That's washed out. This was all along this footing
Oh,
and it's
wow.
all gone. It's all gone. And actually underneath it, all the scorings also happened. This is low tide when we took this photo. So here is that same drop now from a different angle, looking at the same issue. And here's some other problems. This gap got very wide. And you also see some cracks in the footing, the foundation of the footing. So this is the separation that's caused this basically to be damaged to near failure.
And just as an FYI, to those of us who don't know, the dark mark, is that the high tide mark, the darker line across the top there?
Yeah, that'd be closer to high tide.
I'm just wondering how much water passes through there at the high tide.
High tide would be above that. I'm not sure how.
Here?
Yeah, but it would be.
No, I would guess that where the dark turns to the really light color, but I'm not positive. Not up
You've got-
further.
yeah,
Keep going up.
right.
Keep going up to,
Oh,
yeah,
here?
up there.
Yeah.
I think
That's
that's
probably
it.
high
Okay.
tide. Okay.
One image that I found really useful, and I don't know exactly where it is, but it's page 2 of 143, is this image of the stream and how it's restricted by the
Yes.
culvert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, can you maybe make that?
I'll get to that
You'll
one.
get to that,
Yeah,
shortly.
that's,
I'll get to that one
That's
shortly.
that's
very-
very telling.
See, I told you that these are the things that are gonna matter. So taking a look at that bottom circle, here it is again, a lot closer. You can see it's all cracked. The whole foundation is cracked there. It's also cracked further down. This is the hydrology report. I cannot explain this one to you. So I have asked both Brian and Carl to be here to help me understand and explain to everyone else in the room. What I have learned is the lower number on the velocity is a good thing, and the lower number on the headway is a good thing with the different types of structures. So there's 3 proposed structures as part of this project, or what I asked them to do in this report. One is replacing pine, because that's initially what FEMA would
Right.
pay us back for. Alternative was a 22-foot, the current precast structure is about 14 feet wide. The other option is a 22-foot box culvert.
Mhm.
And then the third is actually building a bridge with a 50-foot span. And each of these, the information here helps tell why the recommendation is the 50-foot span bridge. But I'll let them explain briefly what headwater is and what outlet velocity mean. Can you guys do that for me?
Yeah, so, and am I glued here? Can I?
You're
get
glued there because you need
Okay.
that, or you can take the mic off.
Take my-
Take the mic off.
Walk around the room, drop it when you're done.
Yeah, okay. If I can, yeah. So headwater would refer to essentially the backup of water at the inlet of the structure. How much does the water level rise before it goes through the structure? And so the point of this information up here, a lot of numbers, but is basically to show how we have a higher backup of water in essentially the existing condition, what's out there now. And for both alternatives, for the appropriately sized box culvert alternative and what we're recommending as a structure, that drops significantly, that headwater. As important, if not more important, is the velocity. How fast is the water going through? And you can see here, I'm not going to explain all the Q 1.1, 10, 50, 100, but essentially you have, for the existing condition, you have velocities over 20 feet per second, which is like just blasting water. Which is why the picture showing the riprap just washed way downstream. That's the sort of velocity, whereas our a box culvert alternative drops those velocities significantly. We widen out from a 14-foot wide opening to an appropriately sized box of 22 feet. What helps more is a 50-foot bridge at this location where the velocities are they're still fairly high relatively, but roughly half of what's there now. So
That's what I was looking for.
yeah, okay.
And then another piece that's important to understanding this is the frame is what we currently have. And this is a scouring. This is how the water impacts the structure itself. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So scour is basically the depth of material that gets washed away. You could see in one of Kevin's photos, you couldn't see it particularly well, but the footings on which the structure rests there's been a lot of scouring out of material so that they're partially unsupported right now, which is why you have those cracks in the footing.
You can see some rocks underneath this footing here, but it's all gone under here.
Yes. Yep. All in there and yeah, right. There's considerable length there.
All right. So the higher the number, the more scouring that occurs. So you want to see the numbers drop with the better engineered product, right?
Exactly.
So there's the box culvert, and then it drops further with a concept of a bridge.
Yes.
All right. There's the one Rufus wanted.
go.
Yeah, that's the
It's
one.
like the difference between trying to wash your car with a garden hose and a pressure washer.
You got it.
Just-
That's
it's
exactly what it
perfect.
is.
Perfect. Yes.
Where were you at
Yeah.
4 o'clock when we were doing this?
Hey, you should have called me.
That's
I just left
perfect.
work.
Yeah, this is a two-dimensional hydraulic flow model showing basically just water flow. And the colors are water velocities. It's kind of like a heat map. And so you can see here these very extreme colors representing just again the massive velocity of water that caused the scour condition.
All right. So this is all the words, and these are on the different pages about what the alternatives are for structures. I'm not going to read into them. I hope you had a chance to. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Just for orientation purposes, what's the bottom end of the
tail there that's got red on it. By
Down here?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, this is upstream for starters. And I can't remember the exact feature that exists there, but basically our hydraulics engineer had to, it's a process of finding the point in the stream where it's you return to its natural state and not a state that's been impacted by a man-made structure, basically. And so that's the point that he found. He had to go way back here.
Is the blue, the outer limits of the blue dragon, does that indicate like where the water is?
This,
highest?
correct. This would be a storm. Yeah, this would be a storm event.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's right.
So like 100 or 500 year or?
I believe this is a 100-year
Which we have every, what,
event.
20
Every couple of
years?
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a misleading term. Yes, admittedly, that's a misleading
Yeah.
term. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I think in the description, there was exposed, that was to bedrock, was sort of where they went upstream.
I believe so. I was not. Yeah, there's.
I got pretty into the weeds.
Yeah. Again, it's kind of it's a fancy term called geomorphology, in which you are trying to figure out, okay, what's the natural stream look like? This you can see with the dragon. I like that term. You can just see, I mean, it kind of ponds up here. I mean, this tells the story as much as the heat map over here of just how constricted it is by how much backwater you've got that creates all that.
Right?
Was- Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so I want to touch on the different structures again. So there's three options in this document. One is the three-sided structure, which is currently there. So the top culvert, box in on two sides with footing. That clearly has scoured now. This is the two
one.
structures have been replaced in that same spot. It's time to consider something different. So I did ask them to draft the in-kind, and I'll get to the cost at the end of this. But this is, I want to have this for my conversation with FEMA, who I've been meeting with for about 2 hours every week for the last 4 weeks, just to get all of our ducks in a row so we can make sure we're one of the candidates who receive funding for this type of project. The next better step up would be the precast four-sided concrete box. Obviously, based on some of the information you've seen, significantly better than what we currently have. But the recommendation really is for this bridge. It provides the least amount of scour. It increases the outlet velocity. Decreases the-
decreases. Yes.
This is
Yeah.
why I made these guys come here. As well as the, oh boy, what was the other side? Thank you.
Yeah, the hydraulic opening and the bridge ultimately provides greater climate resiliency.
I'm going
Um,
to stick to town government.
And
Hey, you've been up since the crack of dawn or before the crack of dawn, so we forgive you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of this information can be found on page 9 and 10 of your report that
yes.
walks through the value of each of these. And what I did have fun with these guys today was the visual, draft of what the bridge would look like. And, looking at this, it's kind of confusing. So I just wanted to just point out there's some lines there that show where our current culvert is. Those are the blue lines I just jumping on the screen there. And the flow now, you remember that big bulge of
Mhm.
water on the bottom part there. This is all the water trying to get through that culvert. Am I missing anything? Am I good? Okay.
Oh
right
yeah,
now?
no, that's right. No, again, you could go back to the dragon. You see
Yeah.
that well there. You kind of see that here whereas as it comes around the bend, it hammers basically this corner here, and then the water has to try and squeeze through.
And that corner has
The-
seen a lot more damage in the last couple of storms. We were
Yes.
just down there this afternoon and you could see even a few more boulders have fallen out and got washed downstream. So
Was it on the lower
it's on the,
right-hand side that we had the wash up, that had to be filled with concrete? I'm trying to
no, that
orient
was on the,
myself.
that was on the marsh side that had to be filled in. Now it's on the other side that's getting
Oh.
washed out.
Great, okay.
So there's the lines for the old bridge and there's the existing stream. This is how the water pushes through with all that velocity. So you have all that buildup back here and it pushes through the culvert, right? In that red line. So then I wanted to draw in the proposed bridge. And so this is the movement of the water, the proposed stream based on the location of where the bridge would be. And this is at the gold lines represent the low water mark.
Essentially the bottom of the new stream
Yep,
channel.
okay. And then as the tide comes up, there's more capacity there for that water flow. Because the bridge is at the top and then it, V's down to the bottom. So you create a lot more capacity with the bridge rather than a box culvert.
Is it boulders and riprap? Is that how you kind of?
That's
Slope.
That's
Yeah, there's a visual and I can pull up the report in a minute that has that profile view of it too, where it shows the angled embankment. But so the proposed alternative is the bridge. I suggest this as well. The price point is a bit higher, and I show the three costs. It's $1 million for the in-kind. It's 1.7 for the bridge. And what I found from my conversations with FEMA, there is mitigation money, and this threshold is less than 100% of the replacement cost. So there's federal money through mitigation to cover the difference. Maybe not all of it, but a vast majority of it. And there are other funding pockets to cover that additional cost. So my recommendation to the select board would be to move forward with a final design on a bridge and basically give me the authority to go chase down the additional resources to make it happen. Given the fact that we've lost this bridge twice, or this culvert, minor span, we've lost this minor span twice. It's time to upgrade to something that's a little
When-
more resilient.
When was the current one installed?
About 10 years ago.
So $1 million every 10 years.
And that
That
was
we're spending on-
that first one didn't last
Didn't last.
more than a couple of years.
Yeah, okay.
That was part of the Lynch Road project. Yeah. Any idea what that cover is? I mean, you're talking 90%.
Yes, the coverage is 75% federal, 25% state. No, so wow, that's all of it. 75% federal, 15% state. So we're on the hook for 10% of whatever the cost is. Now, like I said, mitigation may cover the full 700 above this. Or it might be a cost share, but there's also other avenues to find resources. This is a fish passage. There might be money through, Trisha's nodding her head, yes.
Mhm.
So
Good.
there might be other ways to help offset that other $170,000.
What sort of lifespan and annual maintenance costs are associated with the bridge versus?
Retention cast, we were talking a little bit about this earlier. Do you want to talk about the type of iron beams that are used now?
Yeah, so the structure type we're recommending here is just simply a steel beam system that would be metallized, which is essentially a heat applied galvanizing that would easily, I mean, you wouldn't see rust on the beams for at least 30 years. Industry standard says 50. And so it would, I mean, the design life, we would design it in total for at least a 75-year lifespan.
And that's with the only maintenance being the road surface.
Correct. That's right.
So rosers.
Right.
Okay, and what sort of lifespan is that?
So, so that depends on the type of concrete reinforcement. We could pursue some alternative reinforcement types that would give a lot greater lifespan. It would come with a cost. We had not investigated that this time, but there are a lot of actually, especially in the last 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of rapid development in bridge technologies to advance but typically it would be, what would you say, 40 years, 30, 40 years for a deck. A good deck would be 30, but yeah. But we could easily, with a little bit more cost, push that out. If that's of interest.
Just curious. We
Yeah.
just want to,
Yeah.
get as much information as we can. while you're here.
Definitely.
The reimbursement of coverage is a percentage and not down. So
Correct.
these are your in-house estimates here, not a solicited bid.
Correct. That's based on the current market. That's right. Mhm.
So I mean, it could be two.
Well, part of the effort of requesting some direction tonight is timeline. It is imperative that we move forward with something so that I can get that federal funding in this bridge done. The deadline FEMA has told me is November 2024. So that's a year from now. It's like the timeline to get this done would be asking VHB to move forward with the final design, look to try to get that done in late December, as early as
Next
I'm
week.
just going to tell them, yeah, next week. See how they respond to that.
Did we have it done last week?
Yeah. Could you have it done last week? Great. And out to bid in late January, early February. So that and I think part of the reason why the particular beam structure is there's not as long a lead time as some of the other material that's out there, especially that box culvert would be probably beyond it. Now, would FEMA give us an extension on that? Probably. But I want to make sure we have access to those resources now before any of that those monies are.
So that timeline is to completion of the project
Yep.
or
That's tight.
that's tight.
And like I said, FEMA's willing to extend. I just need to make the
Well,
case
yeah.
in the argument. So when we start seeing lead times extend or something, or we have trouble finding a bidder the first time, then I can have a conversation with FEMA about why this is delayed. But right now, I still need to be moving forward. It's 18 months from the date the event happens. So it happened May 1st of 2023. So November 1st, 2024 is when we're supposed to have it wrapped up. So
It's tight.
Yeah, I think it's the way to go myself. Oh, how long would it?
Yeah.
Assuming that we can. Direct path tonight to get this out to bid.
that's the end of January, early February timeframe I'm looking at.
Doing things
I'm
right.
sorry to
I
dump
know.
this all on you guys.
Doing
but-
things right costs more money, but
So-
they last longer.
It's also the, I
If
mean,
we're replacing a box culvert every 5 to 10 years at
It's
$1
not-
million a pop.
Right.
Maybe a 50-year lifespan with limited maintenance is not.
It's not
Money well
actually,
spent.
yeah.
The cost of the town is, again, only 10% of this at
Right.
most.
the way that
Right,
land
it's
is
true.
there too, the water just pushes. There's a ton of water, I think, pushing from the underneath the road in that spot, and it's running downhill hard and bad. So-
Yeah,
That's-
one thing I'd like to point out is that the conversation's been started with the DOT that typically, very typically in this sort of a case, after construction is complete, the state would take ownership of the structure. And so we would design it to, of course, state standards that would allow that.
So literally what it's out. So as Kevin was talking about with the minor span bridge, there's definitions to meet those. So once you surpass 20-foot span, it is a bridge. So if the structure is built to state standards, and there has been the conversation with bridge maintenance at Maine DOT, and they have agreed to the design, and it's been designed properly, then the state will take ownership of that structure and it will be theirs for future maintenance, even though it's on your.
That's good.
That's
Another
yes.
point in its favor.
Yeah, excellent.
So that conversation has been started with Ben Foster, Bridge Maintenance Engineer for DOT. And
So
just would have to provide some calculations to them as part of the package for the final design.
Brian used to work for the DOT, so he has some inroads.
Okay. Good.
Now he's
Wow.
gone to the dark side. Or Carl.
No, it's
All right.
great.
First half. Yeah.
Yep. Anybody have any questions? Mal, do you have a question? You usually do on stuff like this. Yep, you're gonna have to yell or get the mic.
The northeast corner of the bridge, is that gonna have to, is the abutment there gonna have to be armored up and given the direction of flow into that area?
Which one?
Upstream, bottom right.
Would be your north.
Yep.
East. Right now, we're seeing the most problem in that.
And why there as opposed to,
You'll remember that graphic.
Yep.
So this is the kind of the 16 thing. So when the water swells and the headwater goes up.
Yep.
You know, this wants to flow this way.
Yep.
But
oh,
the head, wing wall.
is it just softer material there?
So yes, you do also have shallower bedrock.
Oh,
So that's why you'll also notice where the structure is. Span. This way. That's what happened. And scour and orange.
yeah, okay.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I'm just wondering, we talked much about how the.
Yes, the stream banks are designed in accordance with the stream crossing standards. Yeah, providing both critter passage and fish passage.
And-
Yes.
State agencies are involved in this process. DP permitting would be done as part of this process and conversations with all the other state agencies.
Anything else? If not, I guess we need a motion. I'll just go with what Kevin did here because it's easier. To authorize the town manager to sign a contract extension with the VHB for final design of bridge. Bid development, DEP permitting and construction oversight not to exceed our $150,000 amount. Motion.
Sounds like a-
So it was Tor and, okay,
Yep.
and Joel. Don't we have any other things you wanna? Yep, oh, all right, then all in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It wasn't too hard to read until all the water charts and stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming down.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
That's a very tight schedule. Just getting somebody lined up to and available to do something like that's gonna be tough quickly.
There are
Fingers crossed.
a few firms that Brian and I talked about that can do that kind of project.
Okay.
That's why February is like, I'm pushing for early January if I can get bidding out, because that's a time to get those contractors. But we're making the calls now to say would you be available? Can you make yourself available? We'll get a bid out to you. It's tough, but it's got to get done.
Mhm.
It's kind of good that it puts it on the front burner.
Well, and it does seem like of the options, of the two good options, that is actually the quicker.
Quicker one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, the lead time for the material is a lot faster
Yeah.
than even the box culvert, so.
All right, then moving on to unfinished business D, special town meeting,
G,
D.
G,
Wow. I'm seeing a D.
It's
Wow.
the,
why do I have G?
Um,
Okay,
I'm looking at it upside down.
I think we went from C to G.
what
did.
alphabet's that?
no, in my unfinished business, in my write-ups, that's all. It's the late nights when I'm trying to get this done.
No problem.
I'm requesting that the select board support having a special town meeting. Obviously, we're not going to move forward with historic preservation ordinance for the December 11th, but we did support, or you supported a purchasing policy. I'd like to remove the current bid process. As you saw tonight, having to wait another month to come to you to ask to put something out to bid just seems a little slow.
Shackling.
Well, it's okay if we want to keep doing it that way, but I would want to at least clean up the ordinance, but to remove the purchasing bid ordinance, replace it with the policy that you supported in August. And the other item there were two other items that I identified in the agenda packet, but one of them is taking a little longer with the planning board, and that's the shoreland zoning. So the only other item would be the quick changes on the the core zoning code changes. Obviously, Mr. Carey has identified a few other things, but I believe one of the things we talked about was doing small bites of the core zoning code changes, and I think that we can try to work to address this and others at another later date. In fact, Michael and I explored a few others that we might be bringing to you in the next couple of months, but at least we get that quick core zone change, which would help protect some of the other structures besides the main structures for historic preservation needs. But the focus really is needing to get the purchasing bid ordinance removed. So it might be a quick meeting in front of your December 11th meeting when you receive all of your bids for your downtown planning.
So we would do it on
Yeah, just put it right in front of it.
At 7. Okay. Yeah.
Where are we with the shoreline zone?
Good evening.
Mike.
At this past Thursday, we had a planning board meeting, and I put it in front of the planning board, but there's some significant changes that they wanted to take some time to like comb through. Everything falls into basically one of two categories. One is the state. We sent the state the existing shoreland zoning ordinance, and they sent it back with a lot of stuff that needs to be in there. And especially with shoreland zoning, they've got a lot of oversight. There's just like a bunch of standards that just mandated. So they said, here's all the stuff that's missing. You kind of have to enforce this regardless of whether or not you adopt it. If you adopt it with all of these changes, then you'll be in compliance. So there's those. And then there's a number of changes that I identified that are the current kind of template version that they have, chapter 1000, what would still be inconsistent with that between the updated and the current best practice that they've got. And so that's what I think the planning board wants to comb through and see. Some of it's inconsistent with the current zoning code, the updated core zoning code. Some of it is just revisiting and relooking at it. So I believe the planning board wants to schedule a workshop meeting in the middle of November to take that up because it's significant. So
So the process with that, if you're gonna amend the shoreline zone, is a 45-day timeline for
The
document.
So 45 is just a number based on how many public notices have to be done before a public hearing happens. So that's just it would still have to have public notice. And we were looking to public notice twice, but they are not ready to do it yet.
Right, yeah, we discussed that, because when I had it for this last meeting, amongst some other code changes that are, I guess, on their way to you all. And it was just too much. They said, if we could, even if we did I think a workshop meeting this week or next week, still wasn't gonna, we didn't have the time to get everything together, do the public hearing, get it to you for your public hearing, your process, and still make it for December 11th, I guess is what we're aiming for. I mean, we can discuss that tomorrow if there's something that we can line up. But
And the shore, there's a couple of changes, modifications to
the core zoning.
core zoning code.
And those don't need public hearing and all that? Or
They do,
had-
and that the planning board
Already had. the
wants to
public-
have a public hearing at
On the
next
December,
meeting.
yeah,
Oh, perfect.
At
the
the
November
December
meeting.
16th, I think it is. No, that's.
That would be after this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it would,
In November
first.
sometime or earliest.
their next planning board meeting.
Yes.
Which would be the Thursday before your final meeting of November, when you'd have to either place it on the warrant or not.
Okay.
So tonight you'd call for a meeting and notify the clerk. And she and I will work on putting together a warrant right up until November 27th. And it'll either be just the purchasing and bid ordinance, or it'll be that and the core code one. At this point, because there's not enough time for us to also get the shoreline zoning that I had hoped to have in front of you as well. That's the update since Thursday, when I hadn't,
Mhm.
when I was trying to get this out to you.
Well, but how are we looking at January, February, do you think, for the shoreline zoning? I'm just wondering is there any reason to wait and put them all together? I don't know, maybe there's not. But
I mean, I think if there's these small bites that are not as impactful, that are more, state required, or small modifications that help benefit some piece of our ordinance, I think it makes sense to just have those special town meetings just to address those little issues. Now, the big controversial ones, maybe it is better to wait for the full town meeting where more people are paying attention and be part of the discussion at town meeting and part of that vote. But these little ones, I think you guys should encourage people to attend, but I'd like to be able to move forward and attack other tweaks to ordinances that are necessary.
Okay. All right, then do I have a motion to establish a special town meeting for December 11th? Thanks, Michael, at 7 PM in the community room, and notify the interim town clerk. Moved by Joel. Seconded by Rufus. Any other discussion? Nope. All right, then all in favor? Yep, 5-0. All right. Priorities. Our priority list is looking pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know how the visual, I'm gonna put this up too, just because this seems to be helpful. At least to others who want to participate in. Of course, I gotta find. So,
A long list.
well, there's, yeah. You recognize this priorities Gantt chart. This was the one that we collectively, or you collectively, supported in July. So here we are at our 3-month review. to kind of see where we stand.
Tori, you did it again.
What's going on?
I what I did is I went through and kind of made some notes about where we stood on those top 10 priorities and all the green, the letters associate with the information below. But each of those green kind of identify where we've gotten to so far. So I'd say the only ones we really haven't had a chance to bring forward to you. Obviously, Michael and I are working on the comp plan modifications. We finally got a hold of the state. It took us about 2 months, but we made a good contact and figured out what we need to do. I had hoped to bring them to you tonight, but it's already 8:40 and I kind of knew tonight might go late. So I'm looking to push those to the next meeting to go over them with you. It also gives us time to finalize what we've been working on. The other one that we haven't touched yet is the ordinance and policy housekeeping. I also had intended to bring to you tonight, but we can wait. It's not that pressing, but it is. I'd like to get guidance about, what does that mean? You have nearly 24 ordinances. Is the intent to try to review one every 2 months, and then put it on whenever we have special town meetings, or you decide that might be controversial, let's put it to the annual town meeting. I just don't know what process you want. So I'm going to bring a suggestion and you can tell me you're crazy or tweak it this way or let's go. And then I haven't even had a chance to touch the town property maintenance schedule. So that's the other one that additionally, you have a list of another 15 items below this. Next week, we're meeting with the Damascotta Select Board to talk about the housing crisis, and the needs assessment that was done by the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission, and what their next steps are going to be and how we can be involved in that. I also intend to facilitate probably about a 15 or 20-minute conversation with both boards to identify or to sort of prioritize the things that we collectively want to be working on. So you'll see a survey out from me tomorrow on that, asking you about things that you think we could be working with Damascotta on. I'll have examples of things that both the town manager and Damascotta and I have talked about, so you get an idea of what we're thinking about, and seeing if you support that, or are there other things you'd like us to add to the list and have as part of the conversation next week. All that being said, which is also in my town manager report, what's relevant here is maybe we wait till the next meeting to decide how you want to reprioritize our list based on what comes out of next week. So the November 13th meeting might be a good time to delve back into our own list and see where your priorities fall as a Newcastle Select Board and where your priorities fall jointly with Damascotta. That'll help give me direction about how much time I actually spend with Mr. Dorr across the river and how much time I spend with my staff here in Newcastle.
Made some good progress on some things.
You have made good progress in some things. So thank you for the pace, awesome pace. Appreciate that. It's nice.
I think it's a team. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's being modest, to be honest.
No, it's good to get some of these things knocked off. Started even. The list just keeps getting longer and longer though.
Do you have any questions for me on these? I mean, I'm starting to realize like some of these timelines as we get further into the year, like modifying the timelines for how long we might think something takes.
Yeah.
Like obviously we know that a policy takes a lot less time generally, because it doesn't necessarily require public hearing or to go to town meeting where an ordinance does. Right? So as we start to say, we're going to clean this up, well, this might only take 2 meetings and this one might take 4. So I think we'll get better at identifying timelines to accomplish things. So I think I get a lot of kudos only because we didn't really know how long anything would take.
Right. Well, and just starting them is a big deal. I just was reading through the comprehensive plan, and back in 2016, 17 and 18, when that was finally passed, everybody was talking about doing exactly what the Village Partnership Initiative is doing.
here you are.
We're starting it finally. You know, if everybody wanted it.
And I think that that there are a lot of, in the comp plan, there are a lot of recommendations that came out of that.
Yeah.
That, at some point we should explore again and say, all right, what do we want to try to accomplish here?
Right.
Because it doesn't necessarily line up with that list of 25 other things.
No, there's some stuff in there
Yeah.
that was recommended.
And there's stuff that's been popping up that was never on any of this list, stuff like PFAS
PFAS,
or a minor span across Lynch Road.
a $1.7 million minor span.
Yeah, well, now
Or
bridge,
hiring a new town
Bridge.
manager.
or
yeah.
hiring a town manager.
Right, right. David, did you have a comment you wanted to chime in on our priorities?
David Levesque, 30 Glidden Street. I just want to encourage the board to prioritize getting us back into a cable fight franchise contract. The
Yes,
current contract expired, I believe, September 26th of 2019, and we've been operating without a contract since. The problem that causes, although we're operating, we were granted a 3% franchise fee under the old agreement. That's what we've been operating on. So this is an income generating item. And I think I did speak to the town manager. He has it on his desk. And with your encouragement, I'm sure he can push it through pretty quickly to get us up to the 5% and making more money to help relieve the taxpayers. a
yes.
bit. So
That's on my list of push up
Yeah,
things.
great.
We need to push that up. I think the cable company's been less than responsive
yes,
because they don't want it to go up.
exactly.
So
So
Wait,
anything you can. do,
Cable
I'd
company is not
much
getting
appreciate.
back to you?
no, can you imagine? They don't want to give us more.
David,
money.
it's number 12 on their, it was on number 12 on their list.
No,
It-
so
I want to
Okay.
go up higher though.
Great.
I agree with you 100%.
get us into that block chart too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
exactly.
Yep. Well, that's where I believe many of the things that are on our current Gantt chart can be removed, but
Right.
I'm just requesting that we wait until after we have our conversation with Dan Scott.
Yep.
As David mentioned, I do have that charter commission or the charter
Franchise fee.
franchise. I don't wish. God. Wrong charter, charter communications. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I need.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yay.
Oh, okay. I'm done.
It's getting late.
Going into
Yeah.
hour 16 here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then in your fatigue, you want to do the good manager's report real quick?
Yes. If I can find it.
Page 75.
It's not in the packet.
No, it's not.
Don't do that to me.
It's the last thing we got today. Let me read it to you.
Tell me the topic and I can probably bring it. I don't have to read everything.
No, you don't read it.
You can just tell
you know
us
what I
what
mean.
you really want.
The
to
Route
talk-
215 drainage improvements.
Oh, yes, that's an important one.
Yeah.
So I've had a conversation with the hospital. The only person I haven't talked to, I was looking for major employers in the schools. So I made contacts with all the schools to let them know that this project is getting started next Monday. This is Pratt and Sons is doing a DOT project to replace the drainage improvements. So stormwater drainage improvements along Route 1B and up along Mills Road just a bit.
Yep.
So this is going to be disruptive. There are going to be
Down to
times
Pump Street.
down to Pump Street. Yes. Pump Street up to and around the corner to Mills.
Yep.
There's about a dozen catch basins and piping that all has to be replaced. So this is going to cause some traffic delays. So I encourage people if they live in Damascotta and they're headed to work at the Rennie's distribution, take Route 1, don't come downtown. If they live in Newcastle and they're trying to get to the hospital, hopefully not. If it's an emergency, they'll move out of the way for emergency vehicles. But if you're just going there to visit somebody, please try to use Route 1. I'm encouraging school students, if they have friends they can carpool with or take the bus, please do, because it'll help reduce the traffic delay. They are going to try to keep 2 lanes open, but I know there'll be points at which they can't, and it will be down to 1 lane alternating.
I would imagine that's fairly frequently if they're ripping up one side of the road.
Yeah, well, I was told initially that it was going to be 2 lanes all the time, but there's requests from the contractor to modify that. So I want the public to be aware of this because it is going to disrupt, and we will get town, even though it's a DOT project and not our contractor, it's definitely something we'll still get calls about. So
Can we,
Is there,
is there a way to flash, like that's the first thing you see on the website?
I'm definitely putting a news thing up this week on it, but I don't have a banner that runs
They don't-
across right now.
Those are helpful sometimes.
They are helpful, but
Or
that's
pop up.
another conversation about where do you
Okay.
want to put that on the list?
Yeah.
A new
Yeah.
new website. Absentee ballots in the November 7th election. So absentee ballots can be requested online, over the phone or in person. And you can only, you may also vote in person at the town office. Oh, you can vote, voters can also make your vote in town office prior to, November 2nd, prior to November 2nd.
Prior to the second.
November 2nd. There's a special circumstance.
Until November 2nd.
I'm sorry. As of October 23rd, Newcastle's had 76 absentee ballots. We have about 1,800 registered voters. So, and we get nearly 100% voter turnout for referendums, gubernatorial and primary elections. So we encourage people to get their absentees just to keep the flow down in here when the election is on November 7th. And then just a quick update on PFAS, the forever chemicals, the ones that we've identified near the landfill. We've now made contact with the 3 residents that have higher than approved levels. We now have bottled water being sent to them. That cost is about $50 per week per resident. So it's about $150 a week. That's also a reimbursable program through the state. And we'll look to get that reimbursement at a later date, but we're now working through agreements going forward and getting filter systems installed at their homes. So that is going to eat up a bit of my time in the next couple of weeks to get that arranged. Then, like I said before, we have our joint workshop next week with Dan Riscotta. And I mentioned I'd really like to see what priorities you might have for the 2 towns to be working on together in addition to your own list. When I do see Mr. Dorr, we can be being productive rather than just hanging out. So I added to the agenda some items under upcoming agenda items. And this is really in part because I had hoped to put them on your agenda for this evening and it's late and I was hoping to try to maybe start filling up future meetings and you guys knowing about what's coming. So I see this as a way to start doing that. I'll continue to add upcoming agenda items to the agenda and then put a little blurb about them in my town meeting reports. So those are there. And I already talked about most of them. So keep going down. I'll just
Budget.
fire engine bid documents.
No.
Oh, you want me to talk about those? Budget.
Can. Yeah, you can mention those if you want to, but yeah, the next thing down was budget stuff.
Actual versus budgeted.
Oh, fire engine. Oh, yeah, those are all items.
Those are all
Bid
upcoming.
documents. You're right. They're all on upcoming. I'm sorry. And then the financials, this is 3 months in. I did not have a chance to review my notes again to make modifications to these tables that I had included. I know there was some comments about some other ways I could make it better, just ran out of time. So these look like they did last month, but they're updated to reflect the data. And so with time, general government's looking better and public safety still looks kind of wonky, but that's only tied to the ambulance payment upfront. If you were to amortize those payments, the public safety budget is about 20% instead of budgeted 3 months of 25%. So our finances look okay until, we go build a bridge, but
Okay, good. Good, thank you.
Great.
All right. Let's see on that. Get back to warrants. Way at the bottom. All right, we have 2 warrants. I had a couple of questions. So let's do fiscal year 24, the seventh warrant for $29,173.55
So moved.
by Joel, seconded
Second.
by Tom. Do we have any discussions, questions on it?
Did you say you had a couple of points?
Oh my gosh, I didn't bring the
Or did I?
documents.
Oh, we'll have to
That's okay.
swing by. I did have one question on, and maybe Tom knows the answer to this. The fire company bought a mailbox, I assume to put out here, so
Mhm.
getting rid of the PO box,
Yes.
accepting, okay,
Yeah.
start delivery right here.
Mhm.
Okay,
Getting over to the post office has been a challenge.
challenge, yeah. Okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah,
was gonna
their
happen.
hours aren't quite what they could be.
Well, when you have a bunch of volunteers who have day jobs, getting over to the post office.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Nope. All right, so all in favor of approving the seventh warrant here for $29,173 and $55 rather, all approved, 5-0. All right, the fiscal year eighth AP warrant for $383,976.53. A motion to approve that
So moved.
by Joel, seconded
Second.
by Tor. Are Any comments, questions on that? The big expense there was a school. Some station road work. That's it on those. And hold on, I'm trying to find things here. And Kevin, you can look into why we're purchasing another cell phone for the fire chief when we just got one 6 months ago.
Apparently it was broke, so dropped and I'll be meeting with,
Big find out.
Yeah.
Because I thought we got a really expensive case, but it wouldn't happen. Well, fire truck might have run over it. Okay, so no questions, then all in favor? All right, passes 5-0. Then I guess we are going to have a motion to move into executive session under 1 MRSA section 405(6)(a) personnel and 6D contract negotiations.
So moved.
No seconded.
one at a time.
Oh, one at a time?
Yeah, go in, you come out, go back in.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so we're gonna go, all right, in under A personnel first then. So
I changed my
Moved and
motion to
seconded.
that.
all in
I'll second
favor?
that.
All in favor, 5-0.
Okay.
Okay.